Beautiful friends, why is it that it appears that there are so many train derailments occurring here in the United States and Canada both? Even more concerning is the fact that these are trains that are derailing carrying very toxic hazardous materials. Toxic hazardous materials that have already spilled into the Mississippi River and sent toxic plumes of smoke stretching from Ohio all the way to New York. Toxic plumes that we know in the long run are going to be very bad for those who were exposed to it. But of course, they're going to continue to cover it up, as they always do. But what if I told you that there is a very strong potential that China is actually the ones responsible for the train derailments happening in the United States and perhaps Canada as well? And how does BlackRock tie in to this web of darkness? Is BlackRock actually the big spider that's weaving this web of darkness? The web of darkness that is controlled by, you know who? The cabal, of course, Illuminati, or whatever else you want to refer to them as. So what does the future hold in the way of the railroad systems? Many people don't consider the fact that a simple strike on the railroads would destroy the economy completely. Is that part of their plan? Not only would it destroy the entire economy in the United States, Canada, and abroad, it would also throw millions of people into a deep famine and desperation on finding food. Not good. So is this part of their plan? And how does it all fit together? I'm going to present to you today lots of information and evidence, including evidence of a high-speed railroad system that exists and has been kept from the public for decades now, along with compelling evidence that weaves together a connection between China, the CCP, BlackRock, and our railway systems. Very concerning information that you're going to want to hear today, and I'm going to want to hear your comments down below. So let's hop on that train together, go down those railroad tracks right down into the rabbit hole of truth. I welcome you back to my channel, and if you're new here, I welcome you to my channel with infinite love and gratitude. I am forever grateful that you are here with me today. Thank you for being part of the big support that makes this free content possible for everybody else, to my supporters and all of my subscribers. And if you want accurate predictions, prophecy, truth, and content like today's content, then you found the perfect tribe. So please do smash that subscribe, the bell, and all, so that you get notifications. So together, let us again hop on this train of truth. A while back, months ago, I stated that we were already in the Third Great War, and that this war was much different than previous wars because this was a war that was launched with a strong desire by the CCP to pose a world takeover. And we have to admit that they're doing a damn good job at succeeding in their world takeover. I am going to present to you today the information and, again, potential evidence, and I want you all to be the judges here in this courtroom and take with it what you'd like from this very strong potential that China could be the ones responsible for the train derailments that are happening in the United States, especially the derailments of trains carrying toxic hazardous materials. So the question here is the CCP and the CRC sabotaging aspects of our infrastructure via circuit boards? That's right, folks. You heard it here first. via circuit boards. Think about this for a moment. All of our towers that we use our cell phones on that have recently been updated in 2020, all that comes from China. All the circuit boards within trains all are tied to China. So what a better way of infiltrating somebody's infrastructure than sabotaging circuit boards? Think about that. And I'm going to move on with this compelling evidence today. A few years ago, if you recall, there was a man that alleged that he was a military engineer expert. This was a video that went semi-viral in 2020 when we were on global lockdown. And this alleged military engineer expert went and took apart one of the Chinese-made systems for cell phones. He took apart, and when he did and dissected this on live video, he made strong claims that it could be used as a weapon. Is this at all possible? Again, it could be fake, but it also could be very real. And even if it was fake, the possibility of this being a weapon using different hertz and different sounds that could actually control our minds. That's right. There's actually a patent, 5356368. Go look it up. Again, patent number 5356368 that states that the government has mind control techniques using sound, of course. So is there any truth to this? It's highly possible, highly likely, probable that China and CCP has been sabotaging our circuit boards and chips for maybe decades now, along with all the other technologies that we have here in the United States and abroad, all throughout the world. That's all made by China. Technologies that we haven't ever even dreamed actually exist. Remember, for every year that we advance technologically, the government and the secret governments advance 50 years. So imagine what they have now, both China, United States, and Russia, all three. Technologies, again, that you would never dream existed. Something that we all really should be considering and really looking deeper into. First, we're going to rewind to the year 2018 and this very alarming article from the ENO Center of Transportation. As you see in the article here, it states that Chinese-backed companies like the China Railway Rolling Stock Corporation, which is the CRRC, have already signed contracts with transit agencies in Boston, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Chicago, all to supply them all with new train cars, as you see in the article here. Chinese state-owned enterprise are eyeing up United States freight rail manufacturing report. In this, it also says that Chinese-backed companies like the CRRC have already signed these contracts. And the ENO released a report on this topic, which found that the transit agencies are swayed by the CRRC's low bids and willingness to open factories in those localities. Until more is known about this national security implication of Chinese rail cars being used in transit systems. The report finds that a one-year appropriation ban, like the kind Congress is currently considering, makes more sense than the permanent policy change. I will leave links to this article down below and all the other articles that we addressed today. This is followed by a really important and concerning letter from retired Brigadier General John Adams. And in this letter, as you see here, dated October 22nd, 2018, by Brigadier General John Adams from the U.S. Army, national security vulnerabilities of the United States freight rail infrastructure and manufacturing sector. This letter is very disturbing, and I will leave again links down below. Our country depends upon the privately owned and operated North American freight railroad system to provide safe, reliable, and effective transportation to our nation's industries, our defense industry base, and to ensure the security of our homeland. Our nation's future depends upon the reliability and security of freight rail as the primary mode of transportation, not only for the imaginable type of industrial cargo, but also for military equipment, fuels, chemicals, and hazardous waste. 140,000 miles of mainline U.S. freight rail infrastructure connects ports to rural and urban inland hubs. And the military bases are tied to this. And again, I will leave this article, this letter, and the link to this letter down below. But so basically, Brigadier John Adams was sending out a major caution against the sale and the CRRC coming in and taking over the railways here in the United States like they already did in Australia, if you weren't already familiar with that. So who exactly is the CRRC? Well, the first thing I can tell you and ensure you is that there are very strong ties that connect the CRRC with, of course, the CCP. The Chinese Railroad Rolling Stock Corporation is basically a creation of the CCP. This comes from the very unreliable Wikipedia. The CCR Corporation Limited, the CRRC, is a Chinese state-owned and publicly traded rolling stock manufacturer. And it happens to be the world's largest rolling stock manufacturer in terms of revenue, eclipsing its major competitors of Alstom and Siemens. It was formed on June 1st, 2015 through the merger of the CNR and the CSR. As of 2016, it had 183,000 employees. The parent company is the CRRC Group, a state-owned enterprise supervised by State-Owned Assets Supervision and Administration Commission of State Council. If you want to know more about the CRRC, you can look at the Wikipedia article because we know how trustworthy that is, or you can do your own research. But again, there are definitely 100% ties of the CRRC and China's CCP. So what do you think? Consider this. If the United States can pull off sabotaging vital infrastructure, such as pipelines, for example, then what makes you think that China couldn't pull off a takeover of our railroad systems and railways by sabotaging our railways through their own circuit board technology in order to put their own trains constructed of Chinese parts in place of the American-made ones? Not only that, consider the fact that people are so worried about a spy balloon from our BS fake baked media and have us so focused on spy balloons when all along they've been spying on us through our trains. Putting a device on a train can track all of America. Not only that, putting technology in our towers that we rely on for our cellular devices can spy on everything. Why are we not looking into that? Because all of those parts and technology come from China. China's already been posing a takeover, as we know, and they're even doing a takeover of Hollywood as well. So this should be no surprise to any of us. Mass media wants us so focused on the Chinese spy balloon and UFOs, alleged UFOs, instead of our actual infrastructure. And again, potential spy trains. Now let me first take you on a little bit of a ride into the most recent catastrophic train derailments. Catastrophic mainly because they were carrying toxic hazardous materials. Toxic materials that spilled into our environment and into our air here in the United States. But I do remind you, this has been happening abroad in Canada and other places as well, not just in the United States, but mainly in the United States. And as I was doing my research on April 27th, and I refreshed the page searching through train derailments, and lo and behold, yet another train derailment, this time in Ferryville, Wisconsin, dumping the entire load right into the Mississippi River. I don't have enough information on this particular train other than this short video that shows somebody driving by it, but it looks pretty serious, wouldn't you agree? And then we had on April 14th a train carrying toxic materials that derailed in Rockwood, Maine. And as we can see, because we do have eyes in these pictures, that all the trains appear to be derailed. But they claim that the trains carrying hazardous toxic materials did not derail. Only cars that weren't carrying it derailed. So this picture clearly shows that not to be the case at all, friends. And here's an article that clearly shows that they were absolutely lying, as they always do. This article, which comes from the Controlling News Network, claims that Maine warns the rail network to address the cleanup concerns following the train derailment and diesel fuel spill. So you see right there, my friends, it says clearly diesel fuel spill, but they claim that there were no toxic in the beginning. Also, this started a fire, a forest fire, that they say they gained control over. In the article, it states that Maine's Environmental Health Agency is warning a rail network that it will take over the cleanup efforts at the site of the train derailment that happened last weekend near Rockwood, Maine, a village that borders Maine's largest lake. Yeah, it talks about poisoning the waters, my friends, if this company does not make improvements to meet its standards. So not only did they lie to us, friends, they didn't want to clean it up either, to the point that the EPA had to get on their butts about it. 3 locomotive engines and 6 rail cars carrying lumber and electrical wiring were derailed April 15th, causing a small forest fire and injuring at least 3 people, reported by the controlling news network. And the CPKC officials contained the fire and removed the train cars from the site, including those containing hazardous materials, according to the DEP. But again, we know clearly that they lied. If the train cars carrying toxic materials did not derail, then explain the pictures to me, would you please? Because it appears to me that that's not the case. We all know about cover-ups, like cover-up makeup, for example, when it comes to our administrations, leaders, and mass media feeding us nothing but opposite of the actual truth. Just like when it all started with East Palestine, Ohio. We didn't hear about that till a week after it happened, right? Not only that, folks in East Palestine, Ohio, months later, are still staying in hotel rooms. On March 28th, a train derailed in North Dakota, spilling hazardous materials. Hazardous materials that are absolutely toxic to the environment. Being this hazardous chemical spill was in a rural area, do you actually think the railway system is going to spend the millions of dollars that's necessary to properly clean it up? Even though it's a huge risk to wildlife and to our environment. Probably not, because they can easily cover that up. It's in a rural area and nobody's actually going to pay attention to it. On the same day, March 28th, 2023, in San Bernardino, California, a Union Pacific train carrying iron ore derailed, dumping the iron ore all over the environment. And they're telling us that it's not toxic and nothing to worry about. Interesting enough, iron actually is very toxic. And even the Library of Medicine says so. So right here on the website of the National Library of Medicine, we have iron toxicity. Iron toxicity and poisoning is one of the most common toxic ingestions and one of the most deadly amongst children. Failure to diagnose and treat iron poisoning can have serious consequences, including multi-organ failure and death. Yeah, but it's safe, friends. You don't have to worry about the iron ore that is poured out all over the environment, now toxic to the animals and to the wildlife. But that's okay, because there's money involved, and it's all about the money. On March 29th, 2023, a town in Minnesota was evacuated when a train carrying ethanol derailed and caught fire. According to this article, there have been more than 60 train derailments in Minnesota between 2018 and 2022. So in this here article, we see from 2018 through 2022, there were more than 60 train derailments in Minnesota. And of course, we are all aware now of the major modern-day Chernobyl catastrophic event that occurred in East Palestine, Ohio. But are you aware that the Norfolk Southern spent an alleged $387 million to clean up that toxic disaster? Toxic disaster that, again, I remind you, that citizens cannot return to. People who live there cannot return. Did you also know that they actually profited bigger than ever, even after shoveling out $387 million? Norfolk Southern spent $387 million for East Palestine train derailment during the first quarter. But they also reported an income of $711 million, which includes the charge from the derailment. If they didn't have that derailment, they would have made over $1.1 billion in profit. Norfolk Southern announced its first quarter earnings on Wednesday, which gave insight into how much the train derailment in East Palestine has affected the company financially. According to the release, Norfolk Southern spent $387 million in connection to the East Palestine derailment, but the company also said that that amount does not reflect on any of the amounts potentially recoverable under the company's insurance policies. So there again, $387 million is going to be decreased after the insurance companies pay out their claims, meaning that they're going to make more than $711 million in that first quarter. They're not hurting, are they? Now let me introduce you to the CPKC. The CPKC is a merger of Canadian Pacific Railroad taking over control of the Kansas City Southern Railroad. As we browse through their website, we can see that they are combining two historic railroads. Very interesting. Unparalleled shipper benefits. The safe, cost-effective, and environmentally friendly way to ship. Environmentally friendly? Are they really shipping things in an environmentally friendly manner? They're the ones responsible for some of these derailments and toxic spills of hazardous materials. Or are they? Could it actually be, again, China or even BlackRock? The website for the CPKC states that they would work closely with railroad supply companies, hazmat shippers, and first responders to protect communities. The CPKC utilizes an extensive system of wayward equipment to monitor operations across its network. Innovations like cold wheel technology are helping us to predict and prevent safety incidents and service. But again, is it really? Because they've caused major environmental disasters just in the past few months of 2023. Or again, was it China? Or connect it back to BlackRock? We're going to go deeper into this rabbit hole. Now, interesting enough, the majority shareholder of the CPKC is a company out of Massachusetts called Congress Asset Management Company. And the Congress Asset Management Company is a private-owned investment management firm based out of Boston, Massachusetts. The firm manages equity, fixed income, and private equity assets on behalf of institutions, financial intermediaries, and individuals. Soon after, Canadian Pacific bought out the Kansas City Railroad. Shares in Kansas City Railroad more than doubled in the past year. What I find to be the most interesting here that helps weave together this web of darkness is BlackRock. BlackRock placed a bid last September for the CPKC, and the bid was actually rejected, not allowing BlackRock to take the control that they were wishing to do. So now, is BlackRock actually the culprit here in the train derailment? It could actually be, because they didn't get to take control of a major railroad system that they were trying to take control of. Aggravated and disappointed, the BlackRock bear was poked even harder soon after they lost their bid and takeover of the CPKC railroad system. U.S. Congress poked that BlackRock bear even harder and stirred them up by sending them a letter. U.S. Congress sent a letter to Blackstone and BlackRock regarding their diversity and inclusion numbers. So was that BlackRock bear poked to the point of wanting to do something damaging to the CPKC railroad systems? Because soon after, the CPKC has a major train derailment and major disaster to clean up after. That cost them $387 million. So now we got to ask ourselves, is it actually BlackRock that may be sabotaging our infrastructure and railroad systems? Is it BlackRock that's really deeply responsible for it all? So if you recall and go back to my earlier predictions from January, I spoke about this year, 2023, being a year where many things were going to begin to be sabotaged. Soon after I made that prediction, of course, we know what happened to the Nordic pipeline. So, again, is BlackRock tied into this web of darkness, or is BlackRock the actual spider weaving this web of darkness? So how does BlackRock tie into this web of darkness? Or again, as I believe, BlackRock perhaps is the actual spider weaving this very tight web of darkness. As we see here, BlackRock and Vanguard are very deeply connected. Basically the same company and the same purpose and intentions, taking over the world. And if we were to ask who owns the world, the answer, of course, would be BlackRock. People think it's Bill Gates owns everything. No, BlackRock's got them topped off. BlackRock controls and owns our whole financial institutions. But people are not aware that that's actually the case. As you see here, BlackRock is setting out to buy up all the houses, as they bought up thousands and thousands of homes in order to rent them out. This is just some of what BlackRock owns and controls as they continue buying up everything they possibly can to gain control of the world, a world control they already seem to have on humanity. Did you know that BlackRock is the fourth branch of government? That's right, BlackRock, the fourth branch of government. BlackRock, fourth branch of government. When the Fed needed a firm to help in the panic-induced market crisis, of course, they turned to BlackRock. And they turned to BlackRock because of their expertise in their Aladdin software platform, which evaluates risks for clients. Aladdin software platform? The genie in the bottle? You know there's got to be something symbolic and something they're not telling us about it. And I'm sure it's a very advanced AI system. The world's largest money manager has become such a force and developed such a strong tie to the U.S. government. The U.S. government isn't the only strong tie they have, friends. They're actually even more connected to China and directly to the CCP, as we're going to continue to explore. I will leave the link to this article and all the rest of the articles down below. Meet BlackRock, the company that owns the world and the fourth branch of government with $9 trillion in assets under management. $9 trillion, friends. $9 trillion. There's a good chance that you have never heard of BlackRock, the world's most influential financial company with a $9 trillion in assets under management as of June of 2021. And I'm sure it's gone up higher since. That's more than the gross domestic product of every country in the world except for the United States and China. Additionally, BlackRock runs its Aladdin software program, a massive technology platform that oversees at least $21.6 trillion in assets. Aladdin is a network of 5,000 computers BlackRock uses to monitor millions of trades and to analyze its clients' portfolios 24 hours a day and to perform risk analysis. And as I said, and the article says right here, BlackRock made headlines last month after the company spent $6 billion to buy single-family homes and turn them into rental properties, according to a report from the Wall Street Journal. In most cases, BlackRock even paid more money above the seller's asking price just to get those homes, killing the dream of homemakers for the middle class. The article goes on to say that in just 33 years, 33, friends, that's that magical number in numerology, the master number, connected to the Freemasons, to the Illuminati, and allegedly the age that Jesus Christ was when he died for our sins. BlackRock has grown from nothing to becoming the world's largest and most trusted asset manager in the company that owns the world. The firm has also become an interestingly influential Wall Street player in Washington, D.C., and a revolving door between finance and politics. Today, at least 3 Blackstone leaders now hold prominent roles in President Joe Biden's cabinet. Today, at least 3? At least 3, it says, which means there's probably more leaders from BlackRock that hold positions in Joe Biden's cabinet. That in itself is scary, friends. And if nobody sees clearly that that is literally them weaving this web of darkness, then perhaps that person would be caught up in that web of darkness and not seeing the light that they need to see shining down from above. And now we know BlackRock owns the world and is absolutely making a fortune. But did you also know they're making a killing at doing it? Literally making a killing, as you see here in this picture. Oil, weapons makers, Lockheed Martin, ExxonMobil, and the list goes on. All weaved into that web of darkness that is meant to control humanity and bring about the mark of the beast and the Antichrist as stated in the Holy Bible.
On the edge of collapse, and some have failed. As uncertainty has grown, many banks have restricted lending. Credit markets have frozen, and families and businesses have found it harder to borrow money. We are in the midst of a serious financial crisis, and the federal government is responding with decisive action. So I propose that the federal government reduce the risk posed by these troubled assets and supply urgently needed money so banks and other financial institutions can avoid collapse and resume lending. This rescue effort is not aimed at preserving any individual company or industry. It is aimed at preserving America's overall economy.
In 2008, during the American meltdown of the economy, BlackRock again was retained by the U.S. Treasury Department in May of 2009 in order to analyze, unwind, and price the toxic assets that were owned by companies like Bear, American International Group, Freddie Mac, Morgan Stanley, and other financial firms that were affected in that 2007-2008 financial crisis. President Bush and the U.S. Treasury hired BlackRock again to analyze and clean up the mess to bail out these companies like Freddie Mac, AIG, and Fannie Mae. Interesting enough, BlackRock actually holds shares in all of the companies that BlackRock assisted in helping the United States bail out. So how does BlackRock tie into the CCP in China? And again, that web of darkness. Check this out.
BlackRock, the biggest American money manager. Where are they investing your money? China, pouring in billions, propping up Chinese communist leaders, putting money into surveillance companies used by the Chinese military. Even left-wing billionaire George Soros knows BlackRock is harming U.S. national security. CEO Larry Fink loves to tell Americans how to live, but he negotiated against America, sucking up to China. BlackRock, taking your money, betting on China.
By its own estimate, the CRRC currently controls more than 83% of the global rail market. Moreover, the company has made public its aim to dominate the remainder of the global market. Within a decade of entering Australia's once thriving domestic manufacturing industry, the CRRC used anti-competitive tactics to wipe out Australian domestic rail manufacturing entirely. Representatives actually questioned the Treasury Secretary. Gallagher-Garamendi questioned Yellen on the Chinese rail company's exclusion from state-directed enterprise list in Washington, D.C. This is from October of 2022. At first, reported by the National Review, Representatives Mike Gallagher and John Garamendi sent a letter to the Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, to ask why the Department of Treasury has failed to list China Railway Rolling Stock Corporation Limited as a state-directed enterprise, despite its clear link to the military of People's Republic of China. In Congress, expressed concern with the CRRC in this FY 2020 National Defense Authorization Act. Here's part of that letter here. Dear Secretary Yellen, under the National Defense Authorization Act of fiscal year 2020 and subsequent laws, Congress acted in defense of some of our most critical infrastructure sectors, freight and transit, to protect the market from Chinese state-owned China Railroad Rolling Rock Corporation Limited and other state-owned enterprises acting in bad faith. Given this clear indication of concern from Congress, we write you to inquire why the Department and the Treasury has failed to list the CRRC as a state-directed enterprise. Of course we know why. It's all about payoffs, friends, and it's all about the spiders that run loose in that web of darkness. And obviously, the Treasury Secretary would be one of them. It should be no surprise at this point to any of us that now Blackstone is trying to jump in and help with bailing out the regional banks with their lending. Blackstone is in talks to help regional banks with lending. Blackstone Incorporated, the biggest manager of private equity and real estate assets, said on Thursday that it was discussing partnerships with the U.S. regional banks to help them with constraints in areas such as car loans and home improvement financing. Home improvement. Home improvement to the homes that they just bought that they're going to rent out by the thousands. Interesting enough, this article goes on to say the New York-based firm, which is one of the world's largest non-bank lenders, said that it was the golden moment to expand its credit business after banks retrenched in the wake of last month's regional banking crisis. So, of course, they wanted to go in and buy it all up. Just like they're buying up the real estate, they're buying up everything and anything they possibly can. They do own most of the world. Here's 4 things that we need to know about BlackRock and their investments with China. This article is from 2021. 4 things to know about politically connected activist BlackRock and its China investments. BlackRock Incorporated is the largest money management corporation not only in America but in the world, and it has merged as a big promoter of social and environmental investing into sending billions of dollars of US dollars over to China. A consumer advocacy group asserts that the New York-based BlackRock's push of investing in environmental, social, and governance issues known as ESG. It is intended to distract from the vast wealth that the corporation has already injected into the communist China, despite human rights abuses that are going on there. Again, if you want to read the full article, I'll leave that link down below. So we already see this web of darkness all tied together. So we can easily agree that the big spider that weaves that web of darkness is very connected to BlackRock. Is it BlackRock? Probably not. It's likely the Rothschilds that have been pulling the strings for everything if you look up the history and really track it all the way back a couple hundred years. Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and the rest of them. You know them. And all the families of the banks, like Fannie Mae and the rest of them. They're all connected to that web of darkness. And what I see is them working really hard on creating a system in which you are going to depend on, and that's where the mark of the beast comes into play. The mark of the beast, as stated in the Bible, says that you will not be able to purchase food or anything unless you say yes to the mark. If you have not seen my video documentary, Mark of the Beast, please be sure to check that out. It's a good one. You're not going to want to miss it. In the past, in my recent predictions, I spoke about the Great Awakening on the planet, and that this Great Awakening would cause people to go about major protests, striking, walkouts, and so much more. We've already started to see that happen. But now, what if it were the railroad systems that went on strike? This particular article is a bit alarming. Just how damaging a strike would be on the economy would depend on its length, but a strike of even a few days could lead to a cascade of events that would disrupt supply chains for weeks. Industry officials warn. The White House projects that as many as 765,000 people could be out of work in the next few weeks. Well, thankfully that did not occur, and hopefully it doesn't in the future, but we know how they like to prepare us for things that they're planning. And we already see through the information I provided for you today that the CCP is trying to take over our rail systems like they've already been taking over our farmland and everything else in the United States and abroad, just like they did in Australia and like they are doing currently in Africa. I remind you all that China has already bought up the second largest amount of farm real estate in the United States, aside from Bill Gates, who is the current holder of more property, farmland in the United States than anybody. And we all know that Mr. Gates is definitely one of the weavers of the web of darkness. Let us not forget that not only are they the second biggest in the United States, and not only do they own that and land right next to nuclear facilities, China also owned all the rights to just about every bottled water that you could buy off your shelves in grocery stores here in the United States. China has bought up Nestle Corporation. Nestle Corporation, we know, is part of the web of the darkness. It shows up in the grid that I showed you earlier, connected to BlackRock. Nestle goes into rural areas. There's been documentaries and footage on this. They drill into their aquifers, and they have been known to suck all the water completely out of aquifers in states like Washington, Oregon, and throughout the United States. Some states have even banned Nestle from coming into their towns because they caught wind of what Nestle was doing. So next time you're sucking on your bottle of water, remember where it came from and who bottled it for you. China. Hey, if you're enjoying this content so far, please do me a great favor and click that like button. It helps me, it helps the channel, and it helps you to train those algorithms to ensure my content shows up on your page. I would also like to take a moment to thank all of my supporters, subscribers, and those that are part of the community down below. Subscribe Star, Awaken Your Spirit community, and all the other supporters that make this free content possible for everybody. Thank you with infinite love and gratitude. Still on the subject of trains, this time I'm going to take you down in this last piece, down a different rabbit hole that still connects to the web of darkness and the spiders that control the web of darkness. This is really interesting, this next part. And if you go back to the video that I did called Safe Zones, Billionaire Bunkers, and Future Earth Maps, you'll know that we already discussed in that video and showed evidence that there already are underground secret railroad systems that are already in place. But the question is there actually high-speed railroad system underground here in the United States, perhaps globally, that they're not telling us about? So now we're going to get in our time machines and we're going to flash back to the year 1956. March 24th, 25th, and 26th of 1956 to be more precise, and in the following document put out by the RAND Corporation. You can download this document and other documents on the website rand.org. So check out this document titled Project RAND, Proceedings of the Second Protective Construction Symposium, Deep Underground Construction, Volume 2. Yes, friends, there's a Volume 1 as well. We're going to scan ahead to this page. Just as airplanes, ships, and automobiles have given man mastery of the surface of Earth, tunnel boring machines and shaft sinkers will give him access to the subterranean world. And down below, you even see construction of underground facilities. Remember, this is back in 1956, friends. But let's step in that time machine and go ahead into the future once again to the year 1972. June 11th, 1972, again to be precise. And there's that number 11. We talked about master numbers, 11, 22, and 33. Just wanted to mention that. On June 11th, 1972, an article was put out by the Los Angeles Times titled LA to New York in a half an hour. LA to New York in a half hour. How is that possible? Especially in the year 1972. Well, again, we went back to 1956 where they were already talking about such things to exist. And now we have this whole article here that plans and shows everything about it. 1972. We're talking 50 years ago, friends. Now imagine how far they have come in that 50-year period. Here's a closer look at the article at hand. LA to New York in half an hour. 10,000 mile per hour tunnel train plan developed, friends. A RAND Corporation physicist has derived a rapid transit system to get you from Los Angeles to New York in a half an hour for just $50. He said existing technology, friends, take note of that. Existing technology made it feasible. Existing technology made it feasible, and so does cost analysts. The essence of the idea is to dig a tunnel, more or less, along the present routes of United States Highways 66 and I-30. The tunnel would contain several large tubes from the east-west travel of trains that float on magnetic fields, moving at top speeds of up to 10,000 miles per hour. Passengers would face forward during acceleration and backwards during deceleration. Very, very interesting. Not only does the article lay out everything, braking, generator power, it explains everything in detail as you see here in the article again. I will leave the links below so that you can make your own assumptions to this technology that apparently existed already in 1972. 50 years ago, friends. You don't tell me that they don't have that totally done by now? We know they do. And friends, you can go right to the RAND.org website where I downloaded the documents I just showed you, and you'll see this right here. The Very High Speed Transit System. A description of a very high speed transit system operating in its own rarefield atmosphere in evacuated tubes in underground tunnels. There we have it. So does it exist? Does this all really happen beneath the earth that we're not aware of? Like Journey to the Center of the Earth? Again, if you refer back to my Safe Zone Billionaire Bunker video, you'll see that they already have regular train systems. We have the evidence in front of us that shows that they had the technology and the patents to do this back in the 1970s, which takes me to this. We have a description from the Defense Technical Information Center, Ascension number ADA032172, which was active, goes back to the year 1972. And in the description, transportation, magnetic fields, superconductors, tunnels, drives, vehicles, environmental protection, energy, and the list goes on as you see. And we can continue, and it even gives a better description of abstract, the very high-speed rail system that I just showed you on the actual website itself. And this is the amazing equipment that they utilize to melt rock and dig huge tunnels underneath our feet. Huge tunnels, and to do so secretly, which are often responsible for many earthquakes and the smaller earthquakes that are seen in different places throughout the world. The NTBM, Nuclear Tunnel Boring Machine, which is patented with a U.S. patent. Putting all these pieces together, again, I could do a whole video just on this high-speed railway in itself, so I do encourage you to do your own research. But the question that you may ask would be the same question that I ask. If Elon Musk is building one, why only in Los Angeles or in California? Why won't they let him put one across the country like he really initially wanted to do? Would that come in contact with the tunnels that already exist? The underground cities that they don't want us to know about? That we're becoming more and more aware of it? All of this information, my spirit guides confirm, will all slowly be leaking out. Not to mention the sick, disturbing things that go on in their underground tunnels and cities. Something I talked about back in my 2016 World Predictions. So what do you think? So coming from the perspective of the spiritual medium, what does the future hold when it comes to the railway systems? You know, many people are claiming in the world of conspiracy, as they call it, that these toxic spills are all part of the depopulation agenda. That goes back to the Georgia Guidestones. The Georgia Guidestones that were just recently destroyed, which was in my predictions would occur. And why were they destroyed? To wipe out the evidence of the plan of the elite and the cabal. That's what some do believe. But, you know, again, it's all just conspiracies, right? We know where conspiracies have gone over the past 2 years. Many of them, most of them, have come out to be truth. So is there truth that this is part of the depopulation agenda? This definitely could lead to the famine that's listed in the Holy Bible that's going to occur in the future. One thing I can assure you is that the cabal, weaving their web of darkness, will eventually be dismantled. But that's not going to be for some time. So I would tell you that you should be stocked up on food with at least 6 months worth of food and anything that you can eat, even if it's a 20-pound bag of rice. Be prepared, be ready, because we obviously see an attack on our food and now an attack on our railway systems that's taking place. What would happen again if all of a sudden you were cut off from supplies or cut off from your power? This potential is so strong now in 2023 than ever before. And those that'll be sorry will be those that are not prepared. I have no doubt that there are going to be more major strikes that are going to occur, especially those that affect the railway systems. Not only that, we're going to see again continued railway accidents and railway incidents. We can only hold in the light that the truth is exposed as to whether the circuit boards really are sabotaged. It makes a whole lot of sense if you think about it, right? It's easier to spy on a country by putting devices in their towers in their trains, mapping out the whole entire country and everything that goes on in the country. So again, I ask you to hold in the light that this truth gets revealed, if it is true at all. Again, I want you to take all this information and you be the judge and you tell me what you think down below in the comments. It means a lot to me. But again, I will tell you to expect more big strikes to occur, more incidents of trains, especially we're going to see very soon, Spirit tells me, train incidents in cities, big cities. And it's not just going to be in the United States, but mainly right now, it seems to be United States and Canada, because we know, as I showed you, BlackRock wants its hands on the CPKS railroad systems so bad that they're willing to do anything to achieve that goal. I didn't finish going down the rabbit hole, so I would tell you to be sure to subscribe down below, because chances are there will be a part 2 to this video and so much other truth, predictions, and prophecy coming at you on my channel. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for clicking the like, and just thank you for everything with infinite love and gratitude. Till the next time, I also would like to remind you to be bold, be true, be kind, be you. Spiritman JT, wishing you an amazing rest of your day. Namaste.